Christianity in Okrika and the diocese born in due season. Okrika as a city-state during the pre-colonial era in Nigeria thrived in a plethora of activities, rich display of its cultural prowess, booming palm oil and other produce trade, and indeed the recognition and worship of many deities. Prominent among these deities was Fenibesu, who was the god of thunder and lightning. He was also recognized as the head of other deities. Others were Odobiri, god of wealth and good fortune, Okuna, god of fire, Berepelowu, the great judge, Iku, rock in the water, among many others. Towns and villages were littered with shrines of these deities, and the juju priest performed religious rituals for individuals and presided over each specific deity and its activities. The multiplicity of small gods showed how deeply entrenched to religion the people of Okrika were, and the hunger in their souls to commune with a superior being. The Oralabo juju priest for the Odobiri deity was Chief Atoredibo Fubarada of Bulomebiri and the head of Okoromakiri house, a position he held from 1842. He was a prosperous and prominent chief whose trade spanned from Kirike, Okrika to Okolobak, Boni in the mid to late 19th century. In Nigeria, Christian activities restarted in the Abeokuta Badagry area. It was said that one Reverend Henry Townsend of the Church Missionary Society arrived in Badagry on 17 December 1842 to rekindle evangelical work in Nigeria. An English cleric, Townsend began working for the CMS mission field in Sierra Leone since 1836 and had learned the Yoruba language from freed slaves in Hastings, the UK. On Christmas Day, Townsend, in collaboration with Dr. Thomas Begg Freeman, a Methodist missionary who was in that era before him, organized Christmas service for the first time in Nigeria history in Badagry in 1842. His pioneering evangelical work was enhanced by his ability to speak the language of the people. From Badagry, Reverend Townsend entered Abeokuta in January 1843, a move which began the renewed Christian inroad into Nigeria. While Townsend remained in the present southwest of Nigeria, Togo and Doheme, Benin, where he championed the Yoruba mission and perfected speaking the language, Crowder headed inland in the southeast and the largely coastal communities of Nigeria's Niger Delta. Crowder's interest in the south of Nigeria was motivated by his selection to participate in the series of Niger expeditions of 1841, 1854, and 1857, which were British government-sponsored joint mercantile, academy study, and missionary endeavor. He established churches and schools around Onitsha in 1857 and such coastal cities like Lokoja in 1858 and Akasa in 1861. On the invitation of King William Dapa Pepple of Boni, Crowder brought Christianity to Boni, where he first set up his base in 1864. It later spread to Brass in 1868, Nembe in 1871, Opobo in 1873, Kalabari in 1874, and Okrika in 1878. It is important to note that whereas the missionaries led by Bishop Ajayi Crowder planted Christianity in the other Ijaw communities mentioned above, it was an indigenous Okrika chief who brought the Christian faith first to Okrika. This chief was no other than the Oralabo juju priest of Odobiri deity, Chief Atoredibo Fubarada. God works in a mysterious way, his wonders to perform. This was during the reign of His Majesty King Ibanichuka Ado VI as Amayanabo of Okrika. As a businessman, Chief Atoredibo had business interest in Boni, where he had many friends and associates. Chief Priest Colonius Banigo was one of his Christian friends. It was in Chief Banigo's house that Chief Atoredibo was converted. Christianity was long established in Boni since 1864. It was also said that the Boni chiefs with time introduced an economic policy which allowed only Christians to carry out trading activities in Boni, which was then the center of commerce between Africans and Europeans on the West Africa coast. This policy may have accelerated the desire of Atoredibo and his friends, who also stayed in Chief Banigo's house to accept the Christian faith. Thus, Atoredibo renounced his fetish beliefs and practices and even threw away all his traditional religion vestment in Boni. He became an ardent believer in Christ. He received more instructions on his new faith from Chief Banigo, who also made sure that he accompanied him to attend divine services regularly on Sundays. From Boni, Atoredibo returned to Okrika, a changed and refined man, well-dressed, unlike an Oralabo juju priest. At home, he destroyed all other traditional religious wares. His wife, Ibilakabo, or Ibiaka for short, and his entire household became his first converts, with whom he commenced family Christian worship. He arrived at Okrika in May 1878. Usually, the arrival of the priest of Odobiri at Orodibo from such journeys was announced with fanfare. He always made an alarm by drumming at a certain place. A reply was then expected from the votaries of the deity. This signified that all was well with him at sea and in his trade at Bonny. People will then troop to his shrine, the shrine of the god of good fortune, for consultations and supplication for good fortune. Atorodibo was first a colossus who bestrode the heathen world before his conversion at Bonny. On 23rd May 1878, Atorodibo's return was without any fanfare. Many Okrika people became apprehensive because his itinerary was generally known. Atorodibo had a bosom friend, Chief Iyanaboy Tamuno George. Worried by his strange silence on this occasion, he went to the Bulomebiri waterfront to wait for Atorodibo's arrival. He even sounded the first alarm expecting a reply from his friend. But all things had passed away. When Chief Atorodibo arrived, he was a completely different man. The paraphernalia of a juju priest had given way to clean modern clothes. He refused to speak to anyone, including his bosom friend Chief George. The strange behavior was shocking. George, an impetuous man, at times erratic and characteristically indomitable at war, was dumbfounded. His friend Atorodibo bypassed him at the waterfront, even shrugging him off. It was a mute drama. Atorodibo was a refined man, a born again. He was filled with the spirit of the living God to be a confessor of Christ forever. However, Chief George showed maturity and still followed his friend to his house, where the apparent hostility became worse. Atorodibo rammed the door against his friend. George was tongue-tied and stood by the door petrified. Thereafter, Atorodibo's wife, Ibilaka, opened the door and apologized to him. She then invited him into the house and shut the door, and they had fellowship. They prayed together, and Atorodibo and wife revealed the true religion of God, Christianity, to their family friend. He was converted. The conversion of Chief George, the great warrior, was significant in the story of Christianity in Okrika. George was a wealthy trader and the head of the council of chiefs of the time. He was well respected as well as dreaded by Okrika people, but he was destined to be the vehicle by which the king and the Ado royal family were to embrace Christianity. The Ado royal house had, from history, been the biggest war canoe house in the Okrika nation. God was to use his warrior chief to be the great defender and benefactor of the new faith, Christianity, in Okrika. Christianity commenced at Bulomebiri, where the Atorodibos reside, but through the efforts of Chief George, other prominent chiefs were converted. These were Chiefs Ilalamoku Ije Ogan and Dikisiki Boka Abam of Ado royal family, and Somiari, Ibanibo, and Okpokeri of Ogoloma. Others were Fibresima Opukwe and Kalio, father of Oju Daniel Kalio. Atorodibo's social status and the conversion of these prominent chiefs gave a new vista to Christianity at Okrika. The chief priest of Odobiri became the chief servant of God. Atorodibo stopped worshipping idols and performing traditional rites to people. It was only a matter of time before he destroyed and cast all the fetish idols, including Odobiri itself, into the Okrika River. His action, however, provoked alarm among worshippers of the deity, and he began to face a string of persecutions. He was summoned before the chiefs and people to defend himself. His offense of denigrating a local communal deity was punishable by death. During the trial, opinions were divided. Although many traditionalists were poised against his action, Chief Atorodibo had powerful friends, namely Chiefs Iyanaboy Tamuno George, Ogan, Abam, Fibresima, and others who stood by him. These powerful chiefs who supported Atorodibo during the trial were also the closest confidants of King Ibanichuka, who was the final arbiter and supreme judge to ratify any sentence to be passed on him. First, even though Atorodibo was found guilty of the offense, death penalty was never imposed. Despite the enormity of the offense, he was merely ordered to pay a fine of 420 manilas. The Amayanabo promptly ratified this verdict. However, his ordeal over his new religion, Christianity, continued. With increasing pressures, including threat to his life, Atorodibo was given a parcel of land by Chief George at Georgiama, where he established Atorodibo village and relocated with his family members. After the migration of Chief Atorodibo to Georgiama, Chief Ilalamoku Ije Ogan became the new champion and rallying point of Christians at Okrika, an ardent believer, benefactor, and second only to Chief George in prominence at the time. Chief Organ provided the fertile ground on which the Christian seed blossomed and spread to other parts. Chief Organ was touched by an incident at Bonny, where a dying heathen chief by name Chief Oju Captain Hart allegedly gave orders on his deathbed for the destruction of all his idols. Consequently, Chief Organ ordered a similar destruction of his household idols. Again, the episode at Bonny made many converts at Okrika to abandon all suspicious beliefs. One of such beliefs was the Fenibeso. Okrika's god of lightning and thunder abhorred the use of corrugated iron sheets to build houses. As a result, Okrika people feared using such materials over their roofs to avert the anger of Fenibeso. But with Christianity well grafted in his marrows, Chief Organ damned the consequences and aspired to build a house in the English fashion with corrugated iron sheets, doors, and windows. He consequently brought from Brass a carpenter named George Nicol Oruwari, who was educated at Brass Mission School and was also a quasi-evangelist. George Oruwari constructed the house, the first in Okrika, with corrugated iron roof, floor, doors, and windows. Chief Organ's house first served as the first sanctuary used for the first organized Christian religious worship in Okrika, led by Nicol Oruwari, who was both a carpenter and quasi-evangelist. He was a trained Christian, but not ordained. As a trained Christian, his presence at Okrika added impetus to Christian activities on the island and beyond. Many more people became converted. The first church building. As Chief Organ's house became too small for the adherents, he consequently allocated another site in his compound where a bigger chapel was erected. Archdeacon Dandison Crowder acknowledged that the new building was the good work of Chief George Organ, Fibresima, and Kalio. He said they built a church that could accommodate 700 worshippers. It was roofed with corrugated iron sheets. The chapel was a wall building neatly daubed with mud, measuring 52 by 191, and had corrugated iron sheets, 10 windows, and a door. It had to be noted that the construction of this elaborate building in Okrika did not meet any opposition because it was within the domain of the great powerful chiefs of Okrika, George, Organ, Abam, and even King Ibanichuka. Chief Organ, who was then very old, also became the first baptized Christian in Okrika. He was baptized during one of his trade trips to Brass. Okrika did not have any resident priest at the time. He first served the church faithfully in his compound until his home call to higher glory in November 1879. The Church Missionary Society in Okrika, with support from the highest rung of Okrika's traditional society, the church in Okrika continued to grow from strength to strength, but the Christian converts needed to be supervised by ordained ministers of God. Above all, the church was anonymous, without a name, and needed to be denominated. This would be realized by the arrival of the Church Missionary Society, CMS. The Christian converts at Okrika were very courageous and zealous for the word of God. Consequently, 3 influential chiefs arrived at Bonny in 1880 to beg the bishop to send a missionary to teach them at Okrika. First, Okrika was to receive its first official missionary of the CMS to Okrika. He was the Venerable Dandison Coates Crowder, Archdeacon of the Lower Niger Archdeaconry, 15 months after the planting of the church by Chief Atoredibo, son of Fubarada. The visit lasted 4 days from Friday 13 to Monday 15th August 1880. On Monday 16th August 1880, a new site for the building of a mission station was shown to the Archdeacon, who described it as quite a high and open ground. This is the land on which the present St. Peter's Church was built in 1924. It was leased to the mission by the Opukwe Fibresima War Canoe House. At a meeting with the chiefs and the people, Archdeacon Crowder stressed the need for funds to build the new church and for the mission at Okrika to sustain itself. After the migration of Chief Atorodibo from Okrika to Georgiama, Chief Ilalamoku EJ Organ made his house available for Christian religious services in Okrika. The worshippers were led by one George Nicol Oruwari, who was both a carpenter and quasi-evangelist. The presence of a quasi-evangelist added a new vista to the whole activity of expanding God's kingdom at Okrika. Many Okrika people converted to Christianity and abandoned idol worship. As the number of worshippers began to outgrow the space in Chief Organ's house, a new and bigger chapel was erected on the site allocated by Chief Organ in his compound. This was the first formal church building in Okrika. Chief Organ, a benefactor and wealthy merchant, died in 1879. The first official missionary of the Church Missionary Society, in the person of Venerable Dandison Coates Crowder, Archdeacon of the Lower Niger Archdeaconry, visited Okrika in 1880 at a church service held on Sunday 15th August 1880 inside the new chapel. Archdeacon Crowther acknowledged that the building was the good work of Chiefs Ogan, George, Fibresima, and Kalio. He said they built a church that could accommodate 700 worshippers. The chapel was a wall building neatly daubed with mud, measuring 52 by 19, and had corrugated iron sheets, 10 windows, and a door. He christened the building St. Peter's Church in recognition of the powerful chiefs behind it. The matins were attended by 403 worshippers, including 9 prominent chiefs. The next day, Monday, 16th August 1880, a new site for a mission station was selected. The site was described by the Archdeacon as quite a high and open new ground. This is the land on which the present Cathedral Church of St. Peter was built. It was donated by Chief Fibresima free of charge from portions of his large farm on the island. In 1881, His Lordship, the Bishop and Prelate of Niger Territories, the Right Reverend Samuel Ajayi Crowther, visited Okrika on his maiden episcopal visit. He arrived on 22nd May 1881 and was well received by Okrika brethren. On 23rd May, His Lordship met the King and chiefs, where an agreement was signed for establishment of a mission station in our country in order to introduce Christianity among us. The document was signed at Chief Ogan's house by King Ibanichuka and 12 chiefs. The chiefs include George, Fibresima, Atoridibo, Kalio, Abam, and Somiari. Others were chiefs Ogbomina, Okpokiri, Ibanibo, and Atubonacho Foinari Ogan. A British officer, H. Johnson, and Archdeacon Dandison Coates Crowther were witnesses. In the agreement, the chiefs agreed to pay 30 puncheons of palm oil towards the support of the mission station at Okrika. The precursor of the present Cathedral Church of St. Peter, Okrika, was a fabricated iron church. It was ordered from England by Reverend James Antos Pratt, but it never arrived until the end of his tenure. It was during the first year of Reverend J. Max Cole that it eventually arrived and was erected in 1896. The church was decked with slightly big tentacles on the ground, providing the upstairs for church workers only. Okrika people called it Okpokiri Laka Chochi Wari. It was situated some 50 to 70 yards away from a thatched building located on the site of the present belfry. The foundation stone was laid by the governor of Southern Province of Nigeria, Colonel H.C. Morehouse, on 5th July 1924. Chief Daniel Oju Kalio was motivated by the beauty and grandeur of the Cathedral Church of Christ, Marina, during a visit to Lagos in early 1940 for a case involving Okrika in the appellate court. He was accompanied by Chiefs Ichi Akigwo Wakama, Chief Igwe Dikibo Fibresima, and Samson Igobo Adoki, who was confidential secretary of the paramount chief. On return, they resolved to build a similar beautiful church at Okrika to replace the prefabricated church on iron pillars. Undaunted by initial challenges, including opposition by the vicar of St. Peter's Church, Reverend J. Max Cole, who advised him to think of building better houses in Okrika, as well as the huge cost, Chief Daniel Kalio carried on. He encouraged the chiefs and people of Okrika never to relent, as the building of a magnificent church would considerably advertise Okrika to the outside world. Several strategies were adopted to raise funds, including the use of accurable funds from the African Trading Company ATC, which later became UAC, land deal with the Ibaka community of Okrika Island. Many chiefs and houses made donations. The Opupe Fibresima house donated the land on which the church was built free of charge, while Chief Ikiriko Daka made the first remarkable donation of £400 for the project on his deathbed. The turning of the first sword was done in mid-September 1923 during the tenure of Reverend H.H. Garrick. He had been a curate under Reverend Cole and eventually succeeded him as vicar in 1921. The church measured approximately 124 feet by 60 feet, with tower 64 feet high. Between 1925 and 1928, elaborate preparations were made for the furnishing of the church. In 1927, the original order for an organ was placed from England, but the cost of £1,000 was considered high. The organ was finally purchased from Messer A.C. White and Company of Chicago, United States, at a lower cost. Okrika leaders, even at that time, were prudent and acted with integrity. On the whole, the St. Peter's Church project cost £17,203 sterling. The consecration and dedication of the church. The Cathedral Church of St. Peter, Okrika, was dedicated at a sacred ceremony on Saturday, 12 January 1929. It was a remarkable event in the Pastorate Church of the Niger Delta. The service began at 3:30 p.m. when the chiefs and members of the parochial committee made their different declarations to the bishop and handed him the golden key presented by Messer H.E.B. Green and Co., the builders of the church. The chiefs of Okrika, Ibaka, and Ogbobo towns, on behalf of themselves and the communities, formally handed over the church in perpetuity to the Niger Delta pastorate church for use in accordance with the rites and ceremonies of the Anglican Communion, as long as that church is in communion with the Anglican Church, and B, a similar declaration by the pastor and parishioners to the same effect. The procession to the west door was spectacular and inspiring. It comprised of the 2 bishops, the archdeacon, 20 priests, 2 of whom were Europeans, and about 80 lay readers and choristers. Next at the door, the diocesan bishop, Right Reverend B. Lasbury, handed over the key of the church to the Crown Prince Zedekiah Dagogo Fibika, a grandson of King Fibika I, Ado V, Amayanabo of Okrika, 1832 to 1874, who was given the singular honor and privilege to open the door of the new magnificent edifice. The honor of dedicating the church fell on Right Reverend A.W. Howells, the assistant bishop, who with the assistance of the diocesan and 6 of the priests went through the function in a pictorial manner that he left nothing wanting in the ceremony. Bishop Howells praised Okrika and its leaders for the project that was very well planned and excellently executed to the greater glory of God. More than 3,000 people witnessed the ceremony inside the church, while those outside numbered 300. The following day, Sunday, 13th January 1929, the diocesan, the Right Reverend B. Lasbury, ordained 14 ministers. 4 deacons were ordained priests and 10 ordinands were made deacons. The preacher was the Reverend A. M. Gelstop, M.A.D.S.O., principal of the CMS College, Okrika, where the ordinands were students. That year, the Okrika church on iron pillars erected in 1896 was finally dismantled. Remarkably, the building of St. Peter's Church was followed by the opening of Okrika Grammar School, OGS, in 1940 by the CMS under the auspices of Bishop A. M. Gelstop. 30 of the first 60 students admitted were from Okrika, including His Majesty King S.P.U. Ogan, Ado VIII, Amayanabo of Okrika, and the late Honorable Justice Jotham Fibresima JP, who was a pioneer senior prefect. Creation of the Diocese of Okrika as a district. Creation of the Diocese of Okrika as a district. St. Peter's Church Okrika became the abode of many ethnic nationalities, including those in Okrika, Eleme, Eche, Ikweres of Apara, and Evo. As of 1928, about 40 churches of the Eche group alone came under the superintendence of Okrika, with St. Peter's Church as the headquarters of all pastoral activities of the ethnic nationalities under reference. It was also the venue from where the idea of establishing St. Cyprian's Church, Port Harcourt, was first conceived. It was therefore a group of evangelists from Okrika that opened St. Cyprian's Church with Elder W. W. Peters, later Chief Inyenengi Daka, as the first headmaster of St. Cyprian's Anglican School, Port Harcourt. In 1983, Okrika Archdeaconry was carved out of Boni Archdeaconry with Venerable N.A. Alasomoka as the pioneer archdeacon and St. Peter's Church, Okrika, as headquarters. The ethnic nationalities that passed through the pastoral supervision of Okrika since the 1880s felt that Okrika ought to have attained the diocesan status at least by the year 2000, when it became obvious that the Bishop of Niger Delta Diocese, Right Reverend S.O. Elenwo JP, was to be translated to the newly created Niger Delta North Diocese in 1996. The Okrikans opined that they should produce the next bishop of the Niger Delta Diocese. However, this dream turned out to be a mirage, and so the people of Okrika decided to seize the bull by its horn to have their own diocese named after Okrika. Between 1996 and 2000, the necessary machinery was set in motion by the proposed Okrika Diocese Planning Committee, which soon became Okrika Diocese Planning Committee, with Mr. E.D. Kalio as chairman, now sir, and Mr. M.N.K. Tamno as vice chairman, now sir. The application form for the creation of the new Diocese of Okrika was submitted at an emergency diocesan board meeting of the Niger Delta Diocese held at St. Peter's Anglican Church, Okrika, on 16th August 2001 by the chairman of the Okrika Diocese Planning Committee, Sir Eli D. Kalio, on behalf of the following archdeaconries, namely Okrika, Okrika West, Okrika North, and Okrika South archdeaconries. This application was approved at the diocesan board meeting of the Niger Delta Diocese held at St. James Church, Peterside, in Boni Archdeaconry on 14th November 2001. The application was placed on the agenda of a one-day synod of the Niger Delta Diocese held at St. Gabriel's Church, Bolo, in Okrika South Archdeaconry on 5th February 2002. Consequently, Sir Chief G.A. Graham Douglas, Chancellor of the Diocese, moved a motion for ratification of the application for the creation of the Diocese of Okrika. Venerable J.I. Oyet seconded the motion. The application was ratified. A team of bishops led by Right Reverend Adebiyi was sent to River State for verification and to assess the level of readiness of the 4 archdeaconries in Okrika in becoming a diocese. Other members of the team were Right Reverend Nicholas Oko, later primate, and Right Reverend Buba Lamido, later Archbishop of Kaduna and Dean, Church of Nigeria. At the meeting of the Standing Committee of the Church of Nigeria held at All Saints Cathedral, Cable Point, Asaba, Delta State on 11th March 2003, the Diocese of Okrika was created to compromise the churches in the archdiocese of Okrika, Okrika West, Okrika North, and Okrika South, with St. Peter's Anglican Church, Okrika, as cathedral. 6 months later, during the Episcopal Synod held at the Holy Trinity Cathedral, Jerusalem, Meduguri, Borno State, on 11th September 2003, the Venerable Tubokosime Abere JP was elected Bishop of the Diocese. He was consecrated at St. Cyprian's Church, Port Harcourt on Sunday, 16th November 2003, with 5 other bishops. The diocese was inaugurated on Monday, 17th November 2003, by His Grace, the Most Reverend Peter Jasper Akinola, then Archbishop, Metropolitan, and Primate of Church of Nigeria. The Right Reverend Tubokosime Abere JP was enthroned the same day by His Grace, the Most Reverend Emmanuel Englands, then Archbishop, Ecclesiastical Province of the Niger Delta. At the ceremony, the deed of relinquishment was read by the Chancellor, Diocese of Niger Delta, Sir Chief Godwin A. Graham Douglas, San, under the supervision of the then Bishop, the Right Reverend Gabriel H. Pepple. The service was attended by Archbishops and Bishops of the Church of Nigeria, the then Governor of Rivers State, His Excellency, Sir Dr. Peter Odili, the Amayanaba of Okrika Kingdom, His Majesty, King Dr. Alfred Abam Ado, the 9th, JP, and other dignitaries. Within the Bishop Abere Episcopacy, the church in Okrika knew astronomical growth and planting of churches. The number of churches in the new diocese doubled in number, and his servant's leadership style was an inspiration to both clergy and laity. But more importantly, the Okrika nation knew relative peace. The Diocese of Okrika was created at a time of palpable tension within the towns and village of Krikese. This was largely due to the heating up of polity as elections had just been held. But thankfully, peace was restored and the church grew. After 17 years of meritorious service, it was time to hand over the baton. The thoughts and speculations of who succeeds the premier bishop became the preoccupation of clergy and laity as well. God himself had prepared himself a vessel that was fit for the task ahead. By divine permission, the mercies of God, on Wednesday, 22nd July 2020, at the Episcopal Synod held at the Basilica of Grace, Gudu, Abuja, the Venerable Enoch Atubedia was elected the second bishop of the See of Okrika. It was a moment filled with joy and celebrations as the news filtered into Krikese, largely because the wait was over. He was consecrated on Monday, 21st September 2020 at the Cathedral Church of the Advent, Abuja, by the Most Reverend Dr. Henry Ndukuba. He was later enthroned a week later at the St. Peter's Cathedral, Okrika, on 28th of September 2020. Bishop Atubedia hits the ground running with such vigor and speed that makes our fastest planes look like tortoise. 2 youth churches were established and a non-liturgical church to cater for Anglicans and non-Anglicans alike who feel like worshiping God in some unique way outside our regular liturgy. Deaneries, missionary, churches, and a new archdiocese was created. He visited the kingdoms in Krikese with the message of repentance and salvation, treating with urgency and dispatched the message for the leaders and people to return to their God and forsake idol worship. A scholarship scheme was floated both at the secondary and tertiary levels, and hundreds of persons across denominations had been trained in various skills and creative works. He established an agricultural development committee within his first year that floated a poultry farm, oil palm plantation, and other hybrid plants. With the introduction of the clergy and wives school, he continues to equip and engage his foot soldiers on how to win war over the souls of men. Being a seasoned administrator, Bishop Atuboyedia commenced the largest building project so far in the diocese, a multi-billion naira diocesan secretariat project, which is tipped to gulp over 2 billion naira, out of which nearly 10% had been committed to project already. The secretariat complex will host conference rooms, offices, a printing press, and other facilities befitting of a diocese that is ready to take on cities and indeed nations for God. The Anglican Diocese of Okrika and indeed the people of Okrika have come at this special moment to celebrate the goodness of God. It hasn't been an easy journey, but has been one filled with great miracles, huge testimonies, and met expectations. Miracles because God could use a Juju priest to bring Christianity to Okrika rather than through direct efforts of missionaries or European merchants, as had been the case with other sister Ijaw clans. The light of Christianity in Okrika from the early times paved the way for her sons and daughters to come to prominence and responsibilities of repute both within and without the shores of this country. And surely goodness and mercies shall continue to follow her, her people, and her land, both now and always. Amen.